In this video, I'm going to show you how to sew a contour dart. These darts are diamond shaped and they're often found on the front of garments or the back of garments which extend to or beyond the hip line. You'll often find them on dresses or shirts. This type of dart fits at the waistline at the widest point here and then tapers towards the hip or towards the bust, or if placed on the back of a garment, this would be tapering towards the wider part of the back. Once sewn, the dart will create a 3D shape which will fit to the contours of the body. At the end, we'll snip the centre of the dart to alleviate some of the strain at this point and to help the dart to sit flat. I'm going to just create a sample using a small piece of fabric. This piece of fabric is approximately 30 centimetres by 20 centimetres or 12 inches by 8 inches. We'll start by transferring the markings to the fabric. I'll lay my paper pattern onto the wrong side of the fabric. You can transfer the markings using tailor's tacks, which I show in a previous video on how to sew the single point dart, or you can speed the process up by using a removable or disappearing pen. I like to place a couple of pins into the pattern before I start. And then to make sure that my markings go through the fabric, I'm going to just use a pin to mark a hole at the points. And then I'll use my disappearing pen to mark a spot on each of those points. Then I can take the pins out and remove the paper pattern. And I've got my 4 markings onto the fabric. Then use a ruler to join up the marks. Fold the fabric over and place the fabric with right sides facing, and position the fabric so that the 2 points sit right on the fold. Then you can place a couple of pins to hold the fabric in place on that fold. Then use a pin to go through from one point here to the other point. Check that that's exactly in the right position and then pin to hold. And if you want to, you can also place in a couple of additional pins to hold the fabric in place here and here. When I sew the contour dart, I sew it in 2 steps. First of all, starting from one side of the centre point and stitching to that tip, and then starting from the other side of the centre point and stitching towards the other tip. It's really important to make sure that the 2 tips have a really smooth finish once they're pressed. I'm going to start sewing from here, just above the widest point of the dart. When you begin to stitch, don't back tack. This section of stitching should be nice and smooth without any bumps. If you prefer, you can use the hand wheel to take the first stitches towards the centre point. And then once at the centre point, pivot the fabric so that the line is facing towards you and stitch towards that tip. As you get towards the tip, you can use the hand wheel again and take the last stitch off the edge of the fabric and bring the needle up again. Then bring the fabric towards you, and we're going to back tack up that folded edge. And then finish off by just pulling the thread to one side, and you can cut the threads quite close to your stitching. Then turn the dart over And we're going to sew in the same way, starting from just above the centre point, stitching towards the tip. Before we start, you can cut those thread ends from the previous step. And pull them out of the way. So as we did before, when you start to sew, just sew exactly over the stitches that are already there and don't back tack. By sewing over the stitches, we're going to reinforce them into position. You can use the hand wheel again to be super accurate, taking your stitches exactly on top of the previous ones until you reach the centre point, and then pivot and stitch towards the tip. Making sure that you take that final stitch off the edge of the fabric, lift up the needle, lift up the presser foot, bring the fabric towards you and back tack up the fold and secure there. And again, pull the threads to one side and cut the threads close to your stitches. You can cut any thread ends from the starting of your stitches. And then we'll press the dart with it folded, pressing towards each tip, just pressing along the folded section where the dart is. And once that's done, you can then open the fabric up and then press the dart to one side. Pressing towards the tip, making sure that's smooth at the tip, and then the other tip. And then take a look at the dart from the right side and you'll see that you've created a 3D shape which will fit around the waist and hip. Check from the right side and press again if necessary, making sure that the tips of the darts are nice and smooth. If you feel that you've got a bit too much of a tightness around the centre point, just flip the dart back over and snip through the centre of the dart, snipping towards your stitches. And that will just alleviate a little bit of that strain on the dart and allow it to sit much flatter. Don't worry about this section fraying. It's not going to fray too much because there's not enough fabric that we've cut there to worry about. So that's your contour dart complete.